Greetings, Trade Federation. It's me again, Migoy, with an upgrade video for the Mu Yanling Celestial Wind Planeswalker deck from Core Set 2020. So, this is a budget upgrade. I don't know the exact math, but I do know that most of these cards don't really cost much. At the very least, we're not going to exceed the deck's initial price, which is around, depending on where you buy it, 10 to 15 bucks at most. These were going for like 600 to 700 pesos, I think, so we're definitely not going to exceed that price. Alright, so to keep this as a Planeswalker deck, I'd like to keep both tutor cards, which is Yanling's Harbingers and Mu Yanling Celestial Wind, the Planeswalker herself, just so we can still say that this is indeed the Planeswalker deck, and we are going to commit to the hard flying theme that is going with this, more so than the Flash. I wasn't feeling the Flash too much. Alright, first things first. We're going to take out, surprisingly, 2 lands instead of just the 1. I found that since this deck has a lot of methods to draw, you'll tend to be flooding on a lot of lands, and it doesn't become difficult to cast your 6 loyalty Planeswalker spell or your 5 loyalty like flyers and all that. So I found that 23 lands is a good, like, how do I describe it? Way to start with this deck. I've sleeved them up in some pretty beat up Ultra Pro Eclipse Blues. That's all I had left, but they work fine. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to show you what I removed. I removed a lot of these. Look at all these cards. I removed a lot of these. Alright, I removed the 2 Air Elementals. I found a replacement for them, which while not as powerful, did something more that I found worked better in my favor, especially against a more creature-based type of deck, which is usually what you'd find within the power levels of these Planeswalker decks. They're very creature-heavy. I also removed, well, I didn't remove this. I had another copy, so I kept that in its sleeve. So we're keeping the Riddlemaster Sphinx, don't worry. My mistake. I am taking out the Celestial Messenger, the unique common in this deck that gets a +1/+1 if you control a Yanling Planeswalker. Sad to say that the Mu Yanling that comes in the regular M20 packs is pretty pricey right now. It's amazing, but it's also really pricey. And if you're gonna go that route, you probably don't even need these cards. But if you do pull somehow 1 or 2 of those, then you could possibly like keep these in the deck. But for me, I'm gonna take these out. I'm also taking out the Waterkin Shaman, where whenever a flyer ETBs, this gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If this had flying, this would stay. But the fact that it doesn't, plus it's only a temporary buff, I'm sad to say this goes. The Brineborn Cutthroats, they're great, but they don't have flying. They have Flash, which is, I think, if you could work this deck around Flash, you could totally do that. But for this upgrade, we're going with the flying theme, so these go out. Frost Lynxes, I do really like this card. It does what I want the deck to do as I build my board, but the fact that it's not a flyer means that this has to go. Plus, it only comes with 2 copies. You could just make a regular mono blue non-flyers and then sink in 4 copies of Frostlings. Alright, so definitely, we're gonna get a 4th copy of Winged Words, because this deck is all about flyers, and this is card draw for flyers. So that is perfect, an easy inclusion. Plus, we pulled 1 off the booster pack that this deck comes with, so that's staying in there. Going with the 4th copy again of the Warden of Evil's Isle, making your flyers cost 1 less. Usually they'll take out 1 or 2 of these, but if you can get the 3rd or 4th out and somehow still be alive during all that, this is a great way to get extra value off your more expensive flyers. Plus, that means that if you are missing on land, because there's only 23, this will make up for that. And of course, another 4th copy of Cloudkin Seer. It's a flying body that draws you a card. That's perfect. That also helps fix your mana problems if you're needing more cards. And hey, at the very least, this can block for you. So we're going with a 4th copy of that. Also, a 4th copy of Spectral Sailor, because this card is absolutely nutso. A 1/1 flying flash with an ability to draw for 4 mana. This is perfect for this deck, so why didn't they give you 4? I don't understand. This card has shot up a bit in price due because of the popularity of the Flash decks and the current standard. Ascenic Flash, Bant Flash, I even ran into a Sultai Flash, so anything with blue, actually, this can go in, because not only does it do all of these things, Flying Flash, a 1/1 for 1, the card draw alone on its body is good. So that is definitely getting 4th copy of. Dungeon Geists, we get rares. Alright, so this deck only comes with 1. I got 3 more, because this will lock down your opponent. These are really annoying. They have to kill it with, they have to either force you to block with it, like if they're going for some big damage, or straight up kill this thing. But, as I mentioned, you have ways of protecting this, which is, we're keeping the unsummons, because this card is great. It's a tempo piece for 1 at instant speed. You can bounce your own creatures, you can bounce your opponent's creatures, you can save your Dungeon Geists, you can re-trigger your Cloudkin Seers if you want to draw again. That is great. This is definitely staying in there. Alright, the new stuff. Well, like I said, we're keeping Riddlemaster Sphinx. I just happen to have a spare copy lying around, so I just sleeved that up before I even opened this because I knew it comes with it already. So we're keeping this because this is a good body. It's a 5/5 for 6, that's not too bad, with flying and the ability to tempo your opponent by bouncing one of their biggest problems on the board. So that's staying. You can go with more copies of this, but sadly, Riddlemaster Sphinx does not come in the regular Core 2020 set. So if you can find it via other means, I think it's gone to like $1 or $2, just because it's harder to find. It doesn't mean it's one of those meta rares. It's just the fact that it's not part of the set makes it hard to find. But you can find this in M19 as well, in the same Welcome decks and the Planeswalker decks from that set, as well as the Deck Builder's Toolkit. So I wouldn't mind having a 2nd or 3rd copy if you can fit it in, but having 1 copy is fine because I prefer having a set of Dungeon Geists. Alright, to the new stuff. We're putting in a set of the cheap Counterspell in Core Set 2020, Convolute, just because I don't have any more copies of the good Counterspells from the Ravnica sets. But you can totally go with that. Convolute is a Counterspell for 2 and a blue. Counter target spell unless your opponent pays 4 extra mana. Usually if you can get this off turn 3 or 4, possibly even turn 5, you can counter whatever spell they cast. If you're going into the super late game, the pay 4 might be too easy for them, especially if you're playing against a deck that tends to ramp on mana. But like I said, this is the super cheap option to do this. You can go with the Counterspell in, I think it was Ravnica Allegiance, Thought Collapse, where you counter target spell and target player mills the top 3 cards of their deck into their graveyard. That can be you, that could be them. So I just didn't have 4 copies of that, but if you're playing blue, those spells cost 1 blue, so that's easy. That's an easy replacement for this. You can also go with the superior Counterspell, which is Sinister Sabotage. For 1 blue, counter target spell and Surveil 1, letting you look at the top card of your deck and deciding to keep it on top or to put it in the graveyard if you don't need it. Say if it's like a land that you don't need or a spell that doesn't benefit the current board state you have, you can put that in your graveyard. So Sinister Sabotage, I think, is being sold for around 40 pesos here, which is near $1. I'm sure it's cheaper than that online. I don't have any more copies of that as well, but those are definitely easier, not too expensive surrogates for this deck. This is more of a placeholder piece. But Convolute is part of Core 2020. I think that's a good way to make your opponents hate you for playing blue. That's how I learned. And the cheaper stuff, again, from Ravnica Allegiance, we have Quench. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2 mana. And this is a 1 blue, 2 mana cost counterspell. It's kind of the same as Convolute, but cheaper. And the requirements for it to resolve, for the spell you're countering to resolve, is also half. Again, you can go, depending on the meta you play, if you're fighting against like faster decks, you could probably go with 4 of these instead of these. But you're playing mid-range anyway, you should probably stick with a more guaranteed counterspell. But hey, this is really good for early game. You can shut somebody's game plan down near immediate. I'm looking at you, Red, with Quench. Quench is pretty good. It's also an instant, so of course it's a counterspell for instant. And again, new cards. I went with these over Air Elemental because, alright, Chillbringer from Ravnica Allegiance is a 4 blue, 5 mana cost 3/3, which not great, but when it enters the battlefield, tap target creature on opponent's control and they do not tap during the next untap step. So much like Frost Links, which is the same exact effect, but on a bigger, slightly bigger body with flying. That's the key thing here. We have the pure flying theme for this deck. So I'm going with 3 copies of these. Again, if you have more Little Master Sphinx, that might be better for you, but the casting cost, like 5 versus a 6, depending on your playstyle or depending on your store's meta or your friend's decks, this might be a better option. Again, these are like 1 peso cards, 10-cent commons, or you know, draft chaff, because this is pretty good, I think, for the deck. And it's part of, like I said, the current standard block for Core 2020. So if you want to play standard, this has no problem like rotating out, because that's going to happen in like the next year, come October of 2021. So you have a whole year to play with this. And that's going to be the upgrade deck. If you really want to rock the Celestial Messenger, or if you just want to, if you get lucky and pull it from a booster pack and you want to still commit to the flying theme, and if you're lucky enough to get the Mythic, you can get the Mu Yanling Sky Dancer, which is the Yanling Mythic from the actual set itself, because the Planeswalker version, and this card, can only be found within the Planeswalker deck. But this, the cheaper Yanling for 1 blue with only 2 loyalty, but does way better things than the other Mu Yanling. I think this has gone up to like 14 bucks. It kind of hurts, but this card is amazing. If you pull this from a booster pack, definite include in the deck. I was lucky enough to get this as my promo foil during pre-release for Core 2020. I love it so much. Not part of the budget upgrade, but hey, again, like, luck of the draw. If you get this, or if you just want the card, this is an easy include in the deck and can significantly beef up the power level, because for 3 mana, she's 2 loyalty Planeswalker, which isn't great, but her plus is +2, and that's amazing because it brings her up to a 4, so she's a 4 mana 3 mana 4 loyalty Planeswalker, which is great. And it's the same lockdown mechanic as this, but -2 -0 instead of -5 -0. But until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -2 -0 and loses flying. So if you need an enemy flyer to come down to the ground, you can give them for the next turn with her plus. And if she survives that turn, which she most likely will at that early in the game, her -3 is she will create a 4/4 blue elemental bird token with flying. That is nuts. That is a lot of power. That's basically an air elemental for 3 mana and an extra turn. So on turn 4, that's a air elemental, which is why I think Shieldbringer took the spot for air elemental. Because, you know, if you put this, that is good. And her ultimate is you get an emblem which islands you control have the ability to tap to draw a card. You might not reach this, but that is a good ability to have. But then again, luck of the draw, or if you just want to spend the money for this card, you could. But that's gonna be it for the Mu Yanling Celestial Wind budget upgrade deck for Core Set 2020 Planeswalker deck starter Magic the Gathering. I'd say this is a good entry point if you're starting out the game. Again, thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down. We appreciate you sticking around throughout the entire video. And if you do indeed like us, please follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegoodtradesbrigade, and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/GTBrigade, because someone else took Good Trades Brigade before us. That was our fault. Follow us on Patreon. For a cup of coffee, you can help us keep the lights on, get better equipment, get more products to unbox, get more upgrades, make more content. You can tell us what to do in the podcast. You can have us do a shout out. You can have us, well, not do whatever you want, but possibly have us do whatever you want. And yeah, just become part of the Trade Federation. We're cool guys, I think. I like to think so, at least. But yeah, we'd appreciate your support. We can do more things. We enjoy doing these. And as always, my fellow Trade Feddies, don't forget to keep it going. See ya. Woo.